Here's probably my favorite pro of the list. This one might surprise you. Then you kind of get this big melting pot of ideas and traditions and foods and all of that. Hey travel lovers, welcome to A Wanderlust for Life. I'm Jessica. I am American. I have lived in Amsterdam since 2014 and I am here to talk to you about the pros and cons of moving abroad. Let's get into it. Moving abroad is a huge step. It's a huge life change. There's many different ways that you can do it. I will leave the video link down below for the ideas of how you can move to the Netherlands if that is something that you're interested in. But the main ways that people tend to move abroad is for school, for work, because they have family heritage, and sometimes just because they want to. Also, moving abroad doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stay in one place. Some people are nomadic, and so they can just travel around, which is easier to do if you don't have a way to legally reside in a certain country past your tourist visa. So there's lots of different ways that you can move abroad and try a different life. But I'm going to be talking today about actually moving and staying in one place. Let's just start with the pros. Let's start with the positive, shall we? Obviously, this is gonna shake things up, right? Like, it's not gonna be anything like what you're used to, and it's gonna get you out of your comfort zone. And I really believe that that kind of shaky uppiness, you know what I mean, is so key for growth. And moving abroad is gonna test you in many, many ways, but you are going to grow from it. Not everybody is gonna absolutely love it, and that's okay. That's the great thing about individual people. We are all different. We're very much alike in many ways in our core, but ultimately we all like different things. But this will shake things up for sure, but I hope that if you decide to do it, that you have an amazing experience. It will help you get out of your high school and college bubble and meet new people and create a whole new network. I think that is so much fun because especially if you go right from college into the job market, maybe where you went to school, which is what I did, this is a little bit more obvious because my bubble stayed very much the same. Obviously, I got some new work friends, which was also amazing, but this will really force you because there's not going to be anybody that you know around. There's not going to be anybody from your college, and when you start work, it's all gonna be fresh and new, which is very exciting, very scary, but it will be amazing because again, it's just pushing you a little bit out of that comfort zone. You'll be in a new culture where you're gonna learn about a world that's outside of everything that you knew. And who knows, maybe you'll even learn a new language, which would be super awesome, am I right? I know us Americans, we don't tend to learn second languages, and many that do learn Spanish, which is very, very useful around the US. But, even those of us who went to school, I went 4 years of French in high school, and I do not know really any French, and I think it's really sad. But just moving abroad with all the new cultures around you, like I live in the Netherlands, but I travel a lot, right? And so I learn about different cultures in Portugal, in Spain, and in Norway, and France, and Belgium, and Germany, and it just kind of, you start to be able to adapt better, and I think that's really, really cool, but also you get to learn about all of these cultures in a way that make you appreciate maybe your own culture, or maybe you appreciate what they've done and you start to adapt that into your own life. It's gonna give you the opportunity to have an entirely new lifestyle, which is really, really exciting because, am I gonna use exciting too many times in this video? I hope not, but it is really exciting. Like for instance, here, I don't have a car. Neither does Sean. We use our bikes and public transportation, and that works very, very well for us. But it's a whole lifestyle change, not just hopping in the car and going somewhere, but rather either checking the times for the bus or getting your bike out of your storage or unlocking it off the street, whatever the case may be. It's an entirely new thing. So it could be just going to the grocery store is a totally new thing. There's just so many new things that it changes how you don't take advantage of your everyday because you're constantly learning. Even to this day, after being here for 8 years, I am still learning, and I think that is so cool. It will kickstart your travel bug, which I'm sure you already have since you're gonna be moving abroad or you're thinking of moving abroad. But it will help you kind of see what the possibilities are outside of where you're from. The thing about the United States is it can be very expensive to get to other countries, but if you're in Europe or in many other countries around the world, it's very easy to get to the other countries, or they might be nearby. And it will just give you the opportunity to not just explore the culture that you're moving to, but also other cultures nearby. And then you kind of get this big melting pot of ideas and traditions and foods and all of that into your own life. And I find that is very rewarding, but it also teaches me so much. It teaches me about myself. It teaches me about the world. And let's be honest, it's just fun. Depending on where you move, it might be cheaper for you to live. It's kind of crazy because even though Amsterdam is a very expensive place to live, we lived quite comfortably, especially when we first moved here. And it just changes everything. The tax system is different. What you pay for is different. Just accessibility is different. It might be a lot cheaper and more interesting to move somewhere else if you have the possibility to do so. And I think that's worth looking into. So don't judge a book by its cover. Rent prices here are insane. I'm not necessarily saying that you should move to Amsterdam, although I usually do say that. But wherever you look, don't just look at the costs of an apartment. Look at if you need a car. And if you don't need a car, how easy is it to get around? What else can you do? Are there a lot of free things around? Is it easy to travel? Is it cheap to travel? Is it, there's a lot of other ways that make costs of living go down. That's not just, rent and food. Learning about new foods, this has to be one of my favorite ones. If you're new to my channel and this is the first video that you've seen, definitely check out my other videos and you can just go to the whole channel below. I do a lot of videos like this, but also travel videos that usually focus on food around Europe. So this has to be in it. Living in a new country will introduce you to a lot of different kinds of new foods, but also the countries around you. And also the people you meet will bring their own. Like Amsterdam's a very international city. So I have friends who are Greek and Portuguese and Italian and Spanish, like all kinds of different cultures are in my own circle. So I learn from them and they learn from me. I like to host Thanksgivings and they like to show me, what they make for birthdays. And I think it's a really cool way to enrich your own life because then you start to incorporate some of that into your daily practice. And that's not just because you can't always find what you're used to at home, but it's part of the culture. And so you just start to adapt and assimilate. And I personally think that's really cool to assimilate in your new culture, but still keeping your own, what's special for you. Here's probably my favorite pro of the list because it's for absolutely everybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you travel to. Confidence. Your confidence will grow because there are so many things to do to even just become somebody who moves abroad, whether you call that an expat or an immigrant. There's so many struggles that you have to do. You have to be willing to learn, to grow, to make mistakes. And that is where confidence really comes in. And also similarly, character. You have to deal with a lot of different things and it really shows what your character is because there's always going to be this constant, not stress, but you have to be willing to adapt. You have to figure out who you are here, figure out how you're going to make it all work together to build the person that you want to be. I found that to be my favorite thing of moving, is I figured out who I was and I was able to not only start from scratch, I didn't reinvent myself. It just became more clear of who I wanted to be. And then I surrounded myself with people that made me feel good to be who I am. All right, are you ready for the cons? There are some. You can live in the most beautiful place on the planet and there are still gonna be cons to moving there. And the first one, in my opinion, is traveling home is very expensive. Now, when I say home, I mean your home country, where your parents are, where your friends are, wherever you came from, because usually it costs a lot of money. And that makes it kind of hard to go back financially, but also hard to want to go back because you feel like you need a reason sometimes. Now, different people are going to have different closeness with their family and with their friends and have different priorities. And I know people who, they have kids, so they go back more often because obviously the family wants to see, they're kids, and that makes it a little extra special. So you'll just have to figure out what works best for you. I feel like a lot of people are going to have an idea of like how much they want to go back once they move. And obviously you'll probably pay attention to the flight ticket prices. And I always recommend doing a price tracker for when you want to go back so that you can always like get the right price. Friendships are hard even when you're in the same town, especially adult friendships. You gotta be honest. It's hard to make friends. I did make a video on how to make friends when you move. I'll leave that link down below for you. But friends and family, it's a hard pill to swallow, but you're gonna lose touch. You're gonna not talk as much as you thought you would, or at least it's very possible that you do so because there's usually gonna be a time difference, and then priorities are gonna change. People have different lives. Especially if somebody has a very demanding job or works weird hours, has children, has to take care of somebody, and maybe you're single or you have a partner and you travel a lot. So there are lots of different reasons why it's very difficult, but the reality is people will grow apart when you're not right there, especially people that you used to see every day. So it's a big challenge, but the exciting part to that is you will make new friends, and there's nothing stopping you from reaching out every once in a while, even still, and visiting them when you go home, which is something I love to do because even if we don't talk a lot, most of my friendships, once we get together, it's like no time has passed. And it's one of the most special things that I really appreciate. Red tape is a pain. Red tape is a pain. It's true. No matter where you move to, no matter where you go. And I think for the Netherlands, it's quite straightforward and everything is written on the IND website. Moving to the US would be, I think, a bigger pain. But it's just, there's always gonna be something. My biggest tip for you if you move outside of the US or probably anywhere is to get an apostille for your documents. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's APOSTILLE. Look it up because it will save you a huge headache when you move. And depending on where you move to, you might need to translate all your documents. So make sure you do all of that before you get too deep into it. Also note that these kinds of things will probably cost money as far as the visa or whatever you'll be working towards. So make sure that you know exactly how much money you need when you get to a place. Taxes! Oh my gosh! So the United States is one of, I think, 2 countries that still make you file taxes even when you don't live there, which is just absurd. Absurd. And sometimes you might have to pay if you pass the limit, which I don't know what that is right now. I think it's around 100,000 per person of income. But it's just a pain to file them because A, it's really hard to find somebody who is used to working with somebody who lives abroad. And like we use a service, we use taxes for expats. I'll leave a link down below for you to the blog post where I talk about all of it. And we still use them, like we're gonna be using them this year as well. But it's like $600 or some dollars just to file the taxes. And that does also happen because we have to file state taxes as well. And I think my state is only 4 that force you to do that. I'm from Virginia. So that's a pain in the butt. But just generally, it's so stupid that you have to file 2 different sets of taxes. And it just gets very, very confusing. So if you're doing it, make sure you hire a professional, especially if you have property in the new place and the old place, or if you're taking income from both places. So just hire a professional because it is such a headache. This one might surprise you. It could be a con, it could be a pro, depending on how you see it. But if you decide one way, then it's probably a pro. But you may not ever want to move back. Maybe that's more of a con for the people who love you than it is for you. But the reality is you could love where you move to. And if you're allowed to stay there and you stay there, that's very possible that you'll never want to move back. And that's not even to say that you won't move somewhere else, but getting that taste of what life is like outside of the United States, it could be very, very tempting to just not go back. For whatever reason, it makes sense for you. Whether it's you like the people, the food, the culture, the location, the accessibility, it doesn't matter. But there's a very real possibility that you won't want to move back. Similarly though, you might hate it. You might absolutely hate it. I know people who have moved here and just never assimilated. It's just, they didn't want to. They just wanted to keep everything about them as an American, which is absolutely totally fine. But I feel like that kind of meant that they didn't really like it here, because I think that if you really like it somewhere, you do assimilate to a certain degree because you want to. You like what there is to be part of, right? But then I also know people who went back because they really didn't like it. They didn't like the lifestyle. I mean, who knows? But it can be really hard and people will move back. The number one tip I have for you for this not to happen is to work on your network as soon as you move here. And again, that how to make friends video that I mentioned, that will help out a lot. But you just have to find your people. Your people are everywhere, I promise you. Do you have a pro or a con to share? Let me know down in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please go ahead and like it if you did, because that really, really helps me out. And subscribe if you aren't already. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.